Welcome for today's evening meditation. So today's topic on how to keep our mind pollution free. We're going to see how we can, by learning the art of mastering the mind, by being seated as the self-sovereign, we can keep it pollution free. So pollution in the mind is created when we don't know how to befriend our mind, when we don't know how to control our mind, when the mind is running on its own and thoughts are being created in different directions. There is pollution created because of the poor quality of thoughts. There can be waste thoughts, there can be negative thoughts, thoughts that drain our energy and enthusiasm. All these kinds of thoughts are possible when we don't know how to control our mind or how to tame our mind to be our friend. When we, as masters, spiritual beings, realize that we are the master of our mind and train ourselves and practice that awareness, then how we can master the mind. When we master the mind, we are able to control and channelize our thoughts in a better way, in an elevated way, so that way we become pollution free in the mind. We'll start with a small meditation and then we'll go further into this topic. Om Shanti. Sit relaxed. With your spine straight and alertness. Keeping yourself above all the mundane things. Let them settle down. During this time that you've given for yourself, let all the other topics of the world be set aside. And you sit on this elevated stage on the stable seat where you can see from above and beyond the ordinary things. Taking your attention above the issues of the daily routine. Issues or things of the body. Let them go deep underneath for a little bit. And you rise your awareness above all that. Going within, observing your inner world and your inner kingdom. Accepting and forgetting everything of the world as it is, of the drama that's going on around you. Accepting and letting go of the awareness of the body. Looking within, seeing the self, that luminous being, conscious energy that is seated on the throne of the forehead, is the master of this body, is the sovereign, the self. This independent, immortal being, being that is filled with love, peace, happiness, and power. This inner being is unique and separate from the physical level. How often are we aware of ourselves during the day? The soul is the ruler, that is the master. over the self, and it runs this inner kingdom by sitting on this throne in the body. And we forget that we are the masters of ourself, of our mind and the body. It's not possible to rule the kingdom. That is why this awareness of who I am, what is the real identity, is so important. The inner being, the soul, is the sovereign, the king, and it operates through the ministers of mind, intellect, and sanskaras, which in turn influence the physical sense organs. This is how it's supposed to be, or it was meant to be. The inner being is the independent, free, powerful, loving, happy being of light, is the ruler of this kingdom. The inner being takes the support of the three ministers, which are the mind, through which thoughts are created, the intellect that discerns and decides, and is the inner voice, and the sanskars, which form the nature of the inner being. These three are the faithful ministers of the ruler, the spiritual self. The sense organs that are part of the physical body are the subjects. Who are faithful and loving to the ruler. This beautiful mechanism of this inner royal court is only possible when the ruler is aware, when the ruler is awake, when we forget the self, the senses become the rulers. Our actions are pulled towards the senses. And the senses, instead of being the faithful subjects, are running loose. The mind and sanskaras dominating, creating sorrow and experiencing disturbance as there is lack of harmony in this inner kingdom. There is lack of order. The intellect, when it's lost its strength, this awareness that the self, the soul, is the ruler, gives us a sense of hope to reclaim and regain the inner harmony and maintain the order again. For us to become masters of the mind, we need to learn this practice. The first step is the awareness of the self and the relationship of the soul, its role as the ruler, and the mind and senses as its courtier and subjects. With this awareness, we get an opportunity to work towards and to move towards mastering the mind by understanding how the mind is working. So every time we check with the awareness of the self, there is an opportunity for us to learn and change the practice. We no longer will let the mind run freely out of control, but we take that opportunity to train our mind in the right way, to train our thoughts and direct them in the right way. So, this constant practice of checking, learning, and changing, this consistent practice will make us competent to be able to master the mind. And when this becomes consistent, then we become masters of our minds. In this stage, we can direct the thoughts as to how we want them to be. Then we are not troubled by the pollution because we are able to direct the mind to create thoughts of whatever quality we want them to be. We can create whatever thoughts we want at whatever time when we become the masters of the mind. That way, we can keep the mind pure and elevated. That requires this constant checking, learning, and changing the pattern of thoughts that are coming. For this practice to become consistent, we can do daily checking in this way, internal checking and holding of the royal court to help us reclaiming mastery over the mind. Let us see how we do that. Going within and checking, we have the realization that we, the soul, is the master, ruler of this internal kingdom, the sovereign of the self. As a sovereign, we can hold the court with all the courtiers and subjects, and taking this time to do the internal checking reawakens the power of the sovereign. As the sovereign, we can guide and direct the courtiers and the subjects in the right way. So, this practice can be done every day for consistency, for us to see the results that we want, to be able to maintain a pure and clean mind that is free of pollution, of weak and negative thoughts. That's how we become the masters of our minds. So the self, the inner being, who is the king of this kingdom, holds the court with all the courtiers, the inner ministers, the mind, intellect, and sanskaras, and the five senses, doing this internal checking, asking each one of the members how they were during the day. Ask yourself, did the mind control the self at any point during the day? Or was the self, the soul, controlling the mind, controlling the thoughts? Were we able to create whatever type of thought we wanted to, whenever we wanted to create? This way, gently ask the minister of the mind whether it was faithful and helpful to the ruler, the master, or not. Similarly, check if the intellect was following the directions of the ruler and staying focused, or whether the intellect was wandering in different directions. We check if the self was controlling the sanskaras or the habits, or if it was overpowered by the sanskaras at any point, at any situation. Did the sanskaras dominate over the self? Check again if the sense organs were cooperative and behaving as the ruler directed, or was any of them running against the directions of the sovereign? This way, when the self, the inner being, is seated on the throne and holds a court with all the ministers and the courtiers, this deep self-checking every night, we get an opportunity to see inside ourselves if there is any negativity or weakness that has come into the mind when we let it run loose, when the mind became the ruler or when the senses began to dominate, all these kinds of thoughts which create pollution can be checked with this internal code, and with the guidance of the ruler, the self, we are able to change them. This way, at the end of the day, we can clean our mind of any clutter by checking when and in what situations we lost control. So, this checking, when done regularly, will give us the practice and give us the power to become the ruler of the self again. We become the masters of our minds.